Hey guys, welcome to another live show of Vanguard Tactics. Today I'm joined by Mark. How you doing, Mark?
Fine, thanks. Yourself?
Yes, mate. Very good, thanks. So we've got a good show lined up today, haven't we?
Sure have. On a Sunday for a change.
Yep. Let's
People like lounging after a big Sunday roast dinner, perhaps. Or in America, they'll be like having breakfast.
yeah. I suppose because a few hours behind, aren't they?
Yeah,
Soon for me to be a few hours behind.
indeed.
Now there could be. I'm just checking. I think there might be a slight issue with our feed. Apparently, it says the internet isn't fantastic. So hopefully, the guys that are listening can hear us okay. Yeah. So if you guys are in the chat, let us know if you can hear us. Have we got anyone watching? We've got 18 current viewers. So guys, if you can hear anything, please do say something just so we can. Apparently our connection is poor. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. Oh, that's not good. Right, I don't know if that's your end or my end, mate. What's your internet like, Mark?
Looking pretty sharp. I'm right next to the router,
Ah,
directly dialed into it. So I think
not good. Well, actually, streaming status excellent. We might be back in the game. So, guys, welcome. Sorry if we've had a slight bit of buffering there. Just to trying to do this live, there can often be some issues. Unable to connect to the chat. Right, it's not going well today. We're having some big issues this end.
Sunday. That's why everybody's YouTube's like overloaded
Yeah.
with Sunday viewers.
So what are we talking about today then, Mark? I'm going to go and quickly bring up YouTube. So if you give the guys a bit of an intro as what we're talking about today, and I'll just see if there's any messages in the chat quickly.
No problem, buddy. So we want to discuss today all things Space Marine because all of us at Vanguard have got Space Marine armies on the go, and in particular we're interested in the not revolution but evolution of Stephen's Ultramarines force, or is it Ultramarines, or is it Iron Hands, or is it White Scars? All shall be revealed because obviously there's a big tournament coming up, which you're going to go to, which is in the SoCal event, which is in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
You'll be travelling to America for it, and you've been steadily preparing over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
And we want to hear all about that and see how you're approaching it. We can sort of jump off a little bit and talk about the state of the meta and that sort of thing. There's been some interesting tournaments occurred this weekend, and also in the state of the meta discussion, we can have a little bit of talk about the psychic awakening. As most guys have seen, there's new Drukhari and Craft World rules coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's it. No, definitely. So that's it. I've got the SoCal Open at the end of the month, so we thought what a great opportunity it would be to talk about kind of how I'm preparing for that. So I've got the comments now, managed to find these live, which is great. So we've got Ari, Zubatman, Jani, Mr. Hatch, how you guys doing? Jason, John, so many of you guys, so too many names to start to mention now, so I hope you guys are all doing well that are in the chat. So yeah, as Mark said, I'm going to be taking Ultramarines to the SoCal Open. We can go over sort of my reasonings to why. Obviously, at this point of the recording, the Iron Hands are out, Raven Guard are out, and obviously Ultramarines and White Scars. So we're just waiting on the Imperial Fists, aren't we? And also Salamanders.
Yes.
And then Black Templars as well, but...
So I am interested to understand. I don't know the answer to this question, but I believe there would be 8 books. But I think we had a discussion. You and Jack think maybe 6. So, or it could be 7. Who knows? I think the question mark was over the Crimson Fist, but they'll probably go with.
I think they're in the Imperial Fist book.
Imperial Fist, yeah.
But yeah, there will be Black Templars at some point, I think, in the future. But They could also be. They are a sort of sub faction or sub chapter, successor chapter, should I say, of Imperial Fists, I believe. If my lore knowledge is correct, I'm not one for the lore, but I am trying to actually improve that. I've been listening to a few of the Black Library books recently, so hopefully I'll know a little bit more about what I'm up to. So then I've actually been listening to some Ultramarines books to find out a little bit more about that and give me some inspiration for SoCal, you know?
Ultramarines books. Did you need help sleeping or something? Or
What are you talking about? They're a great chapter, mate.
I've seen you on posts adding former crag at the bottom and been horrified with that nonsense.
Look,
Not because I'm not. As you well know, I do like a bit of fluff, but not of the Ultramarine variety, of the Fenrisian variety, obviously.
What are you talking about? The Ultramarines like a proud, honourable chapter, all about discipline. You know, that's what I'm all about.
Sushi down to the ground, buddy.
Yeah, discipline. Anyway, so guys, yeah, where should we start with this one? Kind of where the list originated from?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that the best thing to do actually is to talk about the sort of state of play at the minute, because then we can. It's changed so rapidly over the past couple of months, and then you can start to tell the tale of like where you started from Battlefield onwards, and that makes more sense with the background of the meta change, if that makes thematic sense.
Yeah, that's
So,
it.
so where do you think we're at the minute? What we've had some. As soon as that Space Marine Codex dropped, we've had some big changes. So, talk us through them, Steve. How do you feel about what's occurred?
Well, I think you go back 4 months ago, and there was a huge sort of. We were plagued by plague bearers, for one. So the plague bearer, Thousand Sun, and Lord Discordance or Demon Princes were a real popular faction in popular army build. Along with that, then there is also the triple or four Crusader Knights, whether Tyrannist or Crass, whatever the sort of variety there is with the battle cannons and the Avengers. And then also there was the Caladius Grav Tanks, right? So they were the three strongest builds. Then you had a bit of Death Watch here with Blood Angels. You had a bit of Guard. You had
Flyers.
yeah, the Eldar flyer list as well. So they were typically what we were seeing on the top tables all the time. And then pretty much from that point on, since the drop of the Space Marines, oh, and obviously not to mention, obviously you got, some pretty decent Drakari builds with Coven, like 28 Grotesques. You've got the Gene Stealer cult list, with double, units of aberrants in rock saws, whatever, and obviously orcs with looters in smasher guns and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty much the state of play 3 months ago. Now the Space Marines are out. There was a big insertion, I would say, of White Scars. So that was a very sort of popular choice at the LGT. But ever since this Iron Hands book has come out, all of a sudden a lot of those old builds are now completely redundant. So literally the Thunderfire cannon itself has now made the Plague Bearer list pretty much or very, very difficult to use because of tremor shells being, basically halving their moving and advancing. So essentially they've been really shut down. Same for Lord Discordance. So I don't think that's going to be as popular anymore. The Eldar Flyers can literally, and since the Iron Hands book, and there's some really core stratagems within the Iron Hands book. One of them is a relic, which basically minuses one all damage within 3 inches of a bearer, which is huge now because obviously so much of the most brutal damage was being done in the sort of deliverance of damage 2 or D3 weapons. So whether that was star cannons, pulse lasers, they're actually damage 3, but whether it's Avenger Gatling cannons, which are all damage 2, battle cannons D3, the Caladius Grav Tank is what now damage 2, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah.
So against Iron Hands, that's just all damage 1. So yeah, now basically Iron Hands alone have basically just made a lot of those lists completely redundant.
And then I think that one of the issues there is that if you don't kill one of their weapons, whether it's a dreadnought or a executioner or whatever they've gone for, then basically just heal them up. You can heal up to about 9 wounds a turn. So then you're back to square one. You've got to kill it, and you're going to struggle if you're -1 damage or half damage, or you can only, using the Space Marine stratagems of you can only wound this on a 4 up. Things like that make life incredibly difficult or it makes it difficult for you to try and defeat an Iron Hands opponent, because think of then if you don't get it over the brink and clear it off the board, heal 9 wounds, it's back to, and then also that they don't suffer the brackets either, until they're right down the bottom. They're at full strength, and then you're going to lose some objects from your list.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the other, obviously, they get that 6-up feel no pain. So in regards to, and obviously they get a 5-up invulnerable save as well because of this new Tech Marine, Ferios, whatever. So it's one of those that Iron Hands alone have been a huge change in the meta. And you only have to look at some of the most recent results. Iron Hands are already placing in the top events. They're already coming I saw a post earlier that currently there's a tournament. Iron Hands are currently first, second, and third, and it's just ridiculous. It's been one of those that obviously you were there when me and Dan did a test game, didn't
Sure.
We used my Ultramarine build that I refined from LGT. I made it even stronger. I got rid of some of the redundancies that weren't needed, and I'll go over as to what they were. Basically, played against an Iron Hands list we threw together. Dan hasn't even read the Space Marine Codex. He hadn't even read the Iron Hands Codex. He'd spent 1 CP for a reroll, but just the simple math on the list completely destroyed me in 2 turns. It was just abusive. So yeah, the Iron Hands are a real problem at the moment, if I'm honest. They are my biggest worry about the SoCal Open. I didn't. You asked me the question the other day, didn't you? If I was tempted to go Iron Hands.
Indeed, yeah.
And my answer was that I don't think I would enjoy it. I don't think I would enjoy using a list that it's kind of, I would say, and I don't mean to be harsh, but it feels a little bit like 40k. When you go temping bowling, you keep the barriers up. You just point and click. There's a lot of because so much of the strength within the Iron Hands is automatically built in. You just need to remember that you get a 6-up feel no pain. You just need to remember that you get a 5-up invulnerable save, and you just need to remember that you're minusing 1 damage, and just keep it all together. So the skill of the list isn't like, for example, Genestealer Cult, where they're worrying about their characters within ranges. Can they pop up? Ignore Overwatch. Are they worrying about their charge range, wrapping and trapping? When you compare something like Genestealer Cult, the skill level required to, and we've said that before, haven't we, on this show, about the Genestealer Cult being such a high skill level army, or maybe Eldar as well, which is so fragile but pack so much of a punch. When you compare that to Iron Hands, they're just very, very different. So if you just like shooting your opponent off the board, then yeah, Iron Hands are going to be a great army for you. Whereas I like to personally play in all phases of the game. I like to, I really love the movement phase. I love being able to think turns ahead. I like being able to, fight in the combat phase. So I've took a list that ultimately does both of those. But my biggest thing is I'm having to constantly worry about the relentless threat of Iron Hands. And it's just completely come out of nowhere. And I just don't think for a while people are ready for it.
I think that having seen the test game that you and Dan had together, I have thought of some builds that I think could beat it. I have a White Scars list that I'm pretty certain could beat it. But here is the crux of the issue. I've list tailored for Iron Hands. So how does it do against everything else that you're going to see? Because not everybody can buy 3 Executioners plus other stuff, plus Dreadnoughts, whatever, and build an Iron Hands army. You know, you're looking at, let's say, 250, 300 quid, something like that, plus the time to paint it, put it together, and that sort of thing. So some people will react fast. And we know one such person might be one of us two. But not everybody will do that. So they'll still have, like, if you are a Drakari player through and through, if you're a Harlequins player through and through, you're not going to go, right, I'll jump off and get a brand new army to try and beat this. You're going to struggle. And I think that the White Scars really have got the tools to be able to do it, but I'm not sure that many other forces have.
Yeah, the thing is with the White Scars is that there are some potential builds there that, you know, can sort it out fine. They can obviously make the charges quite comfortably. They can come in from an outflank, but it only takes a librarian to cast Null Zone, and all of a sudden all of your Vanguard vets are literally just sat there and without an invulnerable save, and it only takes a couple of Smash Dreadnought. The Iron Hands also Overwatch on 5s, so that's something like if you fail one of those powers to ignore Overwatch, it only takes a couple of things to go to the Iron Hands player's way. And bear in mind, they've also got a stratagem just to ignore that anti-Overwatch power. So there's a few things that the Iron Hands have there.
It's not for certain. I think, like you say, it's a bit like the old Yunari where you needed certain psychic powers to go off, and if you couldn't get it, you were stood there in no man's land struggling, and that's exactly what would happen to the White Scars. Yeah, but the great thing about White Scars is they've got so many ways to reduce that charge range. You can even go for a Successor Chapter where you've got +1 to charge. There's all the stratagems that you can use from that book and the Space Marines book, and I think that the psychic powers as well. And I think that if they get into the lines, you could also use Eliminators maybe to target the Iron Father himself, but you need a ton of them. You need 9 of them, I would say. I think that you can get in there and do damage, but it's going to be, if you played Iron Hands 3 times, which you might do at a tournament soon, you might win 2 and lose 1 because it didn't go off, or vice versa. It might be I'll beat 1 but not 2. You know, it really is on the roll of a dice. I think. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's skill, that gets you over the line, if you like.
No. So I've been playtesting a lot against Iron Hands to see if my list can really take care of it. And the only advantage that I have in that matchup is that if it's good terrain, I can just play the mission, and that's all I can focus on is the mission. And I'm going to go over some of my strategies, how I've been focusing on actually killing Iron Hands and beating them in the test games, and it's given me a little bit more confidence going forward into the event. I think my first, I've got an RTT on Sunday. There's a high potential that my opponents there are going to be playing Iron Hands. So should we go over my list anyway, and then we can go over some of my test games?
Sure. What I'll do actually is let's summarise at this point where we think everything is. So we've basically seen that you described all the regular lists that were about, and I thought it was pretty even, I'll be honest with you, before the Space Marines Codex came out. I thought that 40k was in a real good place. Not that it isn't now, but I just thought it was there was a lot. There wasn't something that was really overpowered. One build that was really overpowered, like Knights getting a nerf, has been positive. I think they became beatable.
Yeah.
So then the Space Marine Codex came along, and it seems like the Space Marine Codex previously was like a 5 out of 10, and the lists around were like an 8 out of 10. This has gone to 11, and then the books have come out on top, and then they've taken it to it's gone even higher. It's not a strange decision, but an interesting one. And my premonition for this is that I think that in 3 or 4 months' time, we won't be talking about Iron Hands. They'll be beatable. There'll be loads of other rules coming out, and they'll be all up to 11 as well. I don't think that we'll look back in a year's time and still see a prevalence of Iron Hands as we've got now. But we've got to deal with it. We've got Raven Guard as well. It'd be interesting to see what they can do. I know you considered taking them as well. Ultramarines are still great, White Scars are still great, but they're four really powerful lists with the successor chapters at the minute. That's the stage we're at. I don't think this phase will last long. I think new rules will come out, Craft World or whatever, and we'll see a change, fast. I think that the meta is going to swing over the coming 2 or 3 months. I think we'll see a big difference. So that's where we're at now. So talk us through where you were at with that list before. So you started off at Battlefield Birmingham, young hopeful Stephen Box taking Ultramarines to Battlefield Birmingham. Who'd have thunk it 6 months ago? We had this conversation today. We said, like, if 6 months ago you just said you were going to start an Ultramarine army and I was going to start an Iron Hands army, then I'd
have been thought we've both been sniffing glue too much.
Indeed, yes. Would have asked our money back from the fortune teller because we would have told them a lot of rubbish. But yeah, that's the way it's gone. It's just been a big change, hasn't it? So you started off there and took us through your list at the beginning phase when you first tried it out.
Oh yeah, so Battlefield Birmingham, the only reason why I took it was because there was a stratagem in that book, which meant I could swap Maelstrom cards. That was the only reason why I took Ultramarines over White Scars at the time, because Battlefield Birmingham was an ETC style mission, where it's like a combo of Maelstrom, Eternal. And basically the list back then had... Let me just remember. It had a chaplain with a power fist and jump pack. It had Calgar. It had Tiggy, the chief librarian, Tigris that is. Had a lieutenant. It had a squad of intercessors, 10-man. It had 2 squads of 5, 2 Thunderfire cannons. It had a Leviathan dreadnought and a big unit of 5 aggressors and a small unit of 3 aggressors. And it also had 2 units of eliminators. And I basically found that I wasn't and also had an Invictus Warsuit. So straight away, before the LGT, I got rid of the Invictus Warsuit. It just didn't do what I wanted it to. The redeploy stratagem that Ultramarines have means that you have to deploy it back in your own deployment zone. You can't just redeploy it somewhere else on the battlefield. So lost that one straight away and added in... what did I add in now? Oh, and I also have a repulsor in the list as well. I can't really remember what I added in for those points. I must have put something else in. But then, basically, what I did was, after some careful consideration at the LGT, I also dropped the 2 units of eliminators, because I just didn't find that they did anything for me. So now the list has developed. I also got rid of scouts. The reason why I've got rid of scouts is because, and I've also got rid of the intercessors. I do like the intercessors, but they're really, really CP hungry to make them work efficiently, because you want to spend 1 CP to put them in tactical doctrine, then 2 CPs to fire, so they get 40 shots. So they're really hungry on the old CPs there. So what I've actually got rid of is I've got rid of Chief Librarian Tigris. I swapped him for a librarian, and obviously I've played so many test games that I could go into details as to why I made each of these changes, and these were like, imagine like, a huge amount of steps. At every step I made a small change. So for example, I got rid of the eliminators. That was crucial that I got rid of them, because I just didn't find that 6 was enough. I then got rid of the Leviathan Dreadnought, which was a huge, huge change. Probably the biggest change in the list was getting rid of the Leviathan. And I also got rid of all the scouts, all the intercessors. I got rid of Chief Librarian Tigris. So I've basically got Calgar. And I'm still only 95% sure on my list at the moment. There's still some wiggle room. There's about 100 points I can play with. So at the moment, the list is Calgar, a lieutenant, 2 units of 3 aggressors, a unit of 5 aggressors, a repulsor, 2 repulsor executioners, a thunderfire cannon, and a unit of 5 inceptors. And then I'm undecided whether I put a librarian in, or I put in just another inceptor with some better weapons on the old repulsor, or I could go for the chaplain Cassius that gives me 2 litanies, or whatever they're called. So I've got some options there. Now, the reason why I've decided to go for this list is the librarian was so situational that I didn't really find that. When you look at my list, I basically put out 300 shots in a turn. So I've built the list to kill Horde. I've built the list to kill Plague Bearers. I've built the list to beat Orcs, Gene Stealer Cult, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very good against Horde. I'm happy to play Horde at any stage, so I don't really need to worry about things like Null Zone to get rid of Zangors, like Invulnerable Save, or Plague Bearers Invulnerable Save, because I've just got 300 shots that are re-rolling hits, re-rolling ones to wound, and with a -1 AP, if it's even relevant, just will go through enough bodies basically. So that's the premise. It's all anti-horde. I can use my executioners to screen, which they do really well. And then I've also got the Inceptors in there, which you never see, but I've got 5 Inceptors, and they basically put out 30 shots in the turn they drop down, strength 5, -2, 1 damage. So my whole army is basically 1 damage, which brings us back to I'll come back to that Iron Hands matchup later on, why the 1 damage weapons are so powerful against Iron Hands and why they can be really, really effective. But basically, yeah, that's the list. So I can put the 2 units of 3 aggressors in the executioner, then I can put the big unit of 5 in the repulsor, so I can have a very mobile force. I've also got some redeploy shenanigans that I can use. Plenty of rerolls. I've got Seal of Oath, which is basically reroll all hits and all wounds against an enemy unit, which is very, very powerful. So if there's something that needs to die, then it's really good at killing that. So I've spent the last kind of few weeks really testing against Ben Jones with his Aldari. And Ben Jones recently came second at the Warhammer World GT, didn't he?
For Ben.
And me and Ben have actually done a recording on that, which is being edited as we speak, so that will come up hopefully in the next couple of days live on YouTube for you guys to check out how Ben got on his list and everything like that. It's a really cool list. He's got basically the Eldar Seer Council, extremely powerful units, like 600 points. So I played against that, was able to beat the Eldar. I also played against 4 Tyrannus Knights, beat that list. And I think Ben conceded it turn 3 with the Knights. And this is one of the top Knight builds at the moment. We then also tested against his Iron Hands list. And I got absolutely smashed. Absolutely smashed. Although, in my first... So Ben went first. I didn't really lose anything. But he flew over with his air wing. And my first turn was so good, just through the weight of fire. I actually killed all 3 planes turn 1, and I still lost. It was just ridiculous how much work his executioners did. So that they were a real big problem for me. And I just played the mission as best as I could. Ben's rolling was just ludicrous. There was a point in the game where I spent 2 CPs to fire my repulsor's executioner cannon at one of his repulsors to help me in my next turn. Because if I can basically bracket it halfway through his turn, he can't repair it. So then in my turn, I can finish it off with my next executioner. That was the plan. Anyway, I spent my 2 CPs. I think 3 out of the 4 hit, 3 wound, and he makes all 3 5-up saves. And I was just like, Ben, I could strangle you right now. Anyway, because obviously that's huge if that goes through, because I've got a potential, or minimum damage is going to be 6. If those 3 go through, maximum's going to be 15. So very, very, very swingy on that one. And again, like you said, it just comes down to dice at the end of the day. So that was that. I also played against Jack's Tau, and I got absolutely obliterated turn 2 by the Tau. But then I fought back well. Jack made one small mistake, and I then just punished him for it. Calgar went in and just punched a Riptide in the face, consolidated, punched another Riptide in the face. So Calgar was just on an absolute beast in that matchup, and I think it's the most he's ever done. But Yeah, so the list now, one of the things that I found when I played at the LGT was I didn't have much range, so that was why I've kind of got rid of the Leviathan and I've put in the Executioners instead. So I've got two kind of threats now. I can kind of let my aggressors foot slog up the board using terrain, or I can keep my army back and just use it as a gunboat at the back with my three repulsors. So I've got some different, I can play in the shooting phase, I can play in the movement phase, I've got a good combat threat as well. So yeah, and then I've been playing against Joe, who I play against regularly, and he's kind of like my test partner. So we played against his Iron Hands list, his Imperial Fist list, which I was fortunate enough to beat, and then we went up against. I've been going up against his Iron Hands. So we played against. Recently, he did an RTT and came second. He went 3-0 with his Iron Hands list. It's got a really cool list, actually, a little bit different to what you might normally see, like some of the normal builds out there. He does have the Air Wing, but he's got Invictus Warsuits and a Leviathan. So the Invictuses are there just to put a little bit of forward pressure on. And he runs a lot of intercessors as well with the Stalkers, because obviously then they're damage 3. Sorry, they're damage 2 but -3. So yeah, like really, really good list. I went first, and this is just the power of Iron Hands. I don't know if I even want to talk about this tactic, if I'm honest. Because I just don't want people to know about it. But turn 1, I go forward, real aggressive, and my aggressors jump out, and I basically kill his Leviathan. Okay? He spends 2 CPs, and he fights with his character Leviathan when it dies.
Fights or shoots?
Shoots, yeah.
Okay.
You can shoot as if it was a shooting phase, because he's a character dreadnought.
Right.
I lost 8 aggressors in my own shooting phase.
Wow.
It's just like ridiculous that something can just do that. Like, that is what really upsets me. So I'm hoping my faith is with GW. They've been very good at, for example, removing the keyword. So they removed the Whirlwind keyword from the Scorpius Dreadnought, didn't they? From the Scorpius Whirlwind tank, whatever it is. So they removed that keyword. I think the Leviathan abuses a lot of the Iron Hand rules. And I think they kind of need to detach the Leviathan away from it. I think that's the best. The Leviathan's still good anyway. It doesn't need half damage. It doesn't need -1 damage. It doesn't need to be able to shoot when it dies. It doesn't need exploding 6s to hit and then to wound. So there's so many buffs you can put on it that just decimate an army. It's just disgusting. So yeah. So I feel very mixed about the Iron Hands, if I'm honest.
Like I say, though, I don't think that I think this is a temporary bubble that we're in. I don't think we won't be sat here in a year's time going, Iron Hands are still unbeatable. Yeah. Although Knights were tough when they first came out. The Knights revolutionised the meta, and we saw them for probably best part of 8 months, I would say, until they've been taken down. They're still good, so it might be some time, but I think other things will be given new rules to meet it.
Yeah, like, to be honest, I'm half tempted just to take Harlequin bikes to the event. Along with like the Psychic and Awakening. I think my beloved Incarn has been dropped by 57 points, if I remember rightly, or 52 points. So now she's real good for literally like 250 points, whatever she is. Like, yes, hello. Yeah, I'm well happy about that. So I am half tempted just to take Eldar, because the SoCal list submission is 2 days after the book drops for the Psychic Awakening for Eldar.
I see, okay.
But it would mean I'm going in with only 1 day's worth of playtesting.
Yeah.
And only literally a week's worth of playtesting that list before the event. So, but then I've played Eldar so many times, so I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm in two minds. But the reason why I put the Ultramarines list together and I literally painted the army within 24 hours was because it's only 24 models and it's easy to fit in a suitcase that I can travel with. So whereas Eldar are very pointy, fragile things to travel with, aren't they? So that this is another consideration I'm having to take, where I wouldn't have to worry about that if I was going just to Birmingham or London or Bristol or something.
Aggressors have got to be the ultimate aeroplane model. They put them in a nice case and they're going nowhere. Some sort of pointy solitaire or something along those lines is take plenty of super glue or pencil at the other end. Yeah,
like my Incarn is like on a base this size and it's just like spirals up. So
that'll get ruined here.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. And we're just going to quickly go through some of the questions in the chat, and then we'll be back to our regular show. So in the chat, guys, we've had a few questions. Can't Iron Hands make intercessors take wounds like Tau shield drones? I think that's Salamanders are getting a new stratagem like that, aren't they? Where they can basically take wounds for people instead, or like they can only be shot. You could be right. I mean, I don't have the book in front of me, but if they do, that's even worse. Imperial Fist coming up, and I think they're going to be pretty potent. I think some people in the chat saying about how good Imperial Fist are looking at the moment.
Yeah, I heard the rumor on that their 1 damage weapons will be 2 damage against tanks.
Yeah,
that'll be really nice. Aggressors there will be worth the weight in gold.
Well, not if it's I think, to be honest, the build that I actually put a little fist list together. So this is probably what I'm going to run at the next, because I love Imperial Fists. I'll quickly run you through this list, guys. And also, one of the other things that we do on our mentorship program, that is our year-long course, is that we do a list weekly, don't we? And I basically go over all the lists of all of our guys on our mentorship, and we sort of discuss them, how to beat them, where they lack, what they need to improve on. So if you've ever asked me for list advice, it's all going to be done through the mentorship now, and I'll do that on a live rather than giving out individual emails and stuff like that. It's just too laboursome. So
let's call it a list surgery.
Surgery, yeah.
So basically, what happens is that we've had a very quite a large group actually of people on Facebook. We've had a private community group, and what we did, that everybody that went on the ITC, the free ITC course, which is still available, you can check that out. I'm sure Steve will put
all the links are in the description below. Yeah.
Fantastic. So go on the ITC course, and then we said to everybody, we're going to give you a group so you can talk about it, talk about the lessons that you've learned and things like that. I think we had about 150 people in it at one point. People were sharing lists, get a real good, fantastic group actually, you know what I mean, of people that were sharing information with each other. And what you did was that we went live in there, once a week. And then people were saying, okay, this is my list, and advice was given, try this or do this or whatever, or people were putting lists in without testing it. So I was saying to them, get out, test it, and then come back and see us, and then we can help you to develop it and things like this. So what's occurring now is that very, very shortly, basically that group is going to become the group for the paying members of the mentorship.
Yeah,
the mentorship is a monthly subscription. Where there's 4 lessons a month. They're all videos. You can go back through and look at the videos. So if you've been in it 6 months, you're going to have like 25 videos, and you're going to say, okay, I don't need to go back through the psychic phase or the movement phase or these tips, etc., etc. It's always available. You can go back to it for the lesson at any point. They're in-depth lessons that are video lessons, and also the support through that group as well. So unfortunately for some people, we're going to have to kick everybody out. And it's going to be left with the paying members of the mentorship group, and anybody that wants questions answered or list advice or problems, this sort of thing. There'll be that surgery every week to go through it, and people have taken a lot from it already.
Yeah, because instead of like charging, I think before it was like $40 to $60 for a list with a video and stuff and me explaining it, rather than doing that individually for people, I just thought, I'll just include it as part of the mentorship program. So it's, again, more value because obviously on the mentorship we do cover how to develop and write a list, all the things that you need to think about in regards to stratagems, CPs, relics, warlord traits, how to refine your list, how to play test it, because we want to make sure that the skills that we're teaching aren't just this is really good, you should take it. It's this is how you can be very critical, pick up any codex off the shelf and be able to read it with a really astute eye, knowing and straight away drawing out the tactics and the strategies. And as you said there, like the one I've recently filmed about the psychic phase, I said in that video, look, if you play Tau at the moment, but maybe in 6 months' time you start a new army like Eldar and you want to know about the psychic phase, then, you know, come back and watch it, because obviously the psychic phase is going to be so powerful. But anyway, so yeah, if you want list help, then head over to the mentorship program. You just need to find us at www.vanguardtactics.com, and you can find out all the links that you need on there to join the mentorship to get the list help. So what else have we got here for going through the chat? Somebody said removing keywords from models with the word in the name is pretty lame. Yeah, they just need to maybe sort of clarify it, perhaps, that maybe it doesn't count for that. Someone said the Incarn just dies in Iron Hand's Overwatch. The thing is with Eldar, they got so many tricks to get around that. You know, nobody's just going to charge a Incarn in straight away. You're going to be using things like Banshees, Solitaires, all that kind of stuff that can ignore Overwatch to basically make sure she can get in. Psychic and Awakening, Witch Strike Power has WC4, I'm not sure what that means, plus
Warp charge.
Warp Charge 4 plus 2 damage melee damage power. Nice, yeah. Could be good. Anyway, yeah, all good. So anyway, my Imperial Fist list is all about heavy bolters. So I've got like a captain, a chaplain, a lieutenant. I've got 6 units of intercessors with the stalkers, because I love them. I've got 2 apothecaries and a company ancient, so people are shooting when they're dying. Then I've got 3 tarantula sentry guns with twin heavy bolters. I've then got 2 units of 6 centurion devastators with twin heavy bolters each, and then a thunderfire cannon. So that is my 2,000 point list basically for Imperial Fists. So yeah, it's just heavy bolters for days.
Sounds tasty.
Yeah. So anyway, so like some of the things that I've kind of learned when I've been playtesting my list, and I thought would be really good to share with you guys, is that there was actually like moments when I was playing Ben where we did like an alternative ending, if that makes sense. So we played out a scenario. So we played out, let's say, my last turn or a phase. And then what we did, if it wasn't as successful as it could have been, not just on dice roll, we went back to the start of that phase and did a few things differently. And I tell you what, that was one of the best things that I've ever done to learn and develop my own skills as a player, in something I'm going to be teaching a lot on the mentorship program. Is all about alternate endings. So when you are, you know, like there's a real big difference between playing a friendly game with your mate and then also having a game where you're playtesting. And the object of the game of playtesting is all about understanding that you're there to stress your list out as much as you can, not just, you know, have a game, right? It's a real mindset thing when you're playtesting.
It sure is. We've talked about this previously, but I'll reiterate some of the things that we've said in previous discussions, and we've taught this in the mentorship that we've been running. The games that we play. Between there's quite a savage group between us, of myself, Dan, Jack, Ben, of really sort of nasty armies. And we turn up and we say, okay, what we're going to do? We're going to play, just play a game, regular game. Okay, fantastic. We'll just play a regular game with this army. The second thing is we're going to play a competitive game. So I've got a list, you've got a list, we're going to play a tournament type game. We're going to, there's no take backs, there's no, I meant to do this here, or do you mind if I do that? Nope, because I'm not going to give it you in a tournament, so you're not going to get it now. That's how it is, and then we're strict, we play it out. The third thing is that the third way is if, Steve described this perfectly before when he was running AdMech. So he was saying to me, look, I've got this admech list, and I'd like to play it, but if I play Udrakari, you'll just vect the one stratagem that I really need to use. So, and I want to see if that stratagem goes off, if it works, if it does the damage the math hammer is telling me that it should. So it's all about the other person. So we had a couple of games a couple of weeks back, didn't you? Came up and we went to Warhammer World, and I said to you, which of my armies do you want to play? You pick the list. You tell me what models should be that you don't want to come up against. And you'll pick a savage list, and then we could have wound it back. And what we're doing was maybe getting to turn 3, turn 4, and going, right, okay, re-rack, let's try something else, because we know what the outcome is. There's no point, like, let's have a 6-turn game where we play one game in a day, but I'm really doing my hardest to win that game by any means necessary. That's not helping you progress that new list, is it? So those are the 3 methods that we utilize for playing games against each other. And there's a 4th one, which is the narrative game, but nobody's ever taken it up yet.
No. And I think the other thing as well is with that is the other thing that I teach on the mentorship program is understanding where your list lies. What is your list tailored to do? So I know I've built my list, and I go into a lot more specifics about the core of your list, how it operates, its design, all that kind of stuff. So I know that my list kills Horde. In the playtesting that I've done in tournaments, I absolutely obliterate Horde. So there is absolutely no point me playtesting against Orcs, Genestealer Cult, Imperial Guard, Infantry, Spam, Plague Bearers. There's just no point me playtesting those games because my time is valuable. You can't really, you want to be getting at least 10 practice games in at least with your army before you take it to a tournament, and there's just no point playing against those armies you're going to win. So you need to make sure when you are playtesting you're identifying what it is that you need to play. So I need to play Mech Eldar because Mech Eldar is everywhere, like Fire Prisms, all that kind of stuff. Ben actually took 3 Warp Hunters. I needed to play against 4 Tyrannus Knights because that list is still out there and it will be there. So can I kill Tyrannus Knights? And then Iron Hands, they're the big boogeyman at the moment. So I've spent 50 to 60% of my test games against the boogeyman in the room. And I just know now that I'm going to be very well prepared going into all of those matchups. And again, playing Jack, who's one of the best Tau players that I know, being able to play him with an optimized marine killing list, how do I do against that? Because that was an unknown. Jack's brought an anti-marine meta list, to the table, so it was actually a bit of a test game for both of us. And then playing against you, can I deal with White Scars? Can the Ultramarines, combat White Scars, and also then Raven Guard because they operate very similarly, and then also Custodes. So you took a sort of Custode mix list, didn't you? So how is my list operating at all the ends of the spectrum in which are going to cause me some issues? Because I'm an elite army. What happens when I go up against an even more elite army like your Custodes? How does that play out? Am I able to still get kill more? Can I still get hold more? Do I need to play differently to how I'd play against Iron Hands? Or do I need to play differently? Because when you're taking a list in a singles, you need to be able to identify, and again I go over this on the mentorship program, are you a killer or are you a holder? And a good player is able to understand exactly where they fit against their opponent. So my list is a killing list. It doesn't really give up many kills. So when I play against an elite army, which has basically got, your Custodes had like a 600 point unit of bikes, right? A 400 point unit of Terminators, whatever it is. Elite armies that do not die. So if I've got a killing list that can't kill, then I'm massively being, hindering myself in game mechanics. So I need to find other ways to win and play that mission. So I think just as it is your take home, guys, my top tips here, and obviously, same as what Mark's highlighted, or, our Vanguard Tactics top tips when you're playtesting and preparing for a tournament is, number 1, highlight the matchups you need to play against. Which ones are going to cause you a bad day? Make sure you're playing against those. at the end of every one of those games, refine your list so it does a little bit better against all of them without hindering your core mechanic. And then also have very clear dialogue, like Mark said, with your opponent to make sure that you're on the same page and on the same wavelength, to make sure that you're not just one of you's not going to get salty about losing. It's you're both actually on the same team to see the damage you can do to this tournament list.
Mm.
And then once you've done that, just be very, very critical. So for me, it took me ages to see that Tiggy wasn't worth it in my list. Ages it took me to see that 130 points wasn't worth it, because I was blinded by my own bias, that I liked the model, that I liked, the mechanic of -1 to hit, for example, on a unit. And I was blinded by the fact that he's got +1 to cast and he's got rerolls. But I'm thinking as if I'm an Eldar player where those traits are extremely powerful, but in a Marine build, it's not, because the powers are so situational. You don't really need the Psychic Phase. Like, the Psychic Phase in the Marine build is just there to support if it goes off, great, whereas Eldar really, really rely on it. So I had to then, basically think very critically about, why is this thing in my list? Why am I even considering paying 130 points for it? Because that 130 points could be another unit of aggressors, for example. Anything I've missed, Mark?
No, that I can think of. In summary, we've gone through the evolution of the Ultramarines list there, and you've taken a very intelligent approach to preparing yourself properly, because the thing is that you're going to fly to America for two things: the masterclass that is being put on.
Yeah.
Brian's store in Utah.
Well, it's actually been upgraded, Mark, now.
Oh, is it?
So the masterclass I'm teaching at, I'm running the same masterclass you and I did and Jack did at your place. So it's a one-day masterclass. It's actually the highlight event of one of the Comic-Cons there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so it's there are tickets still available. So if you are in the Utah area, just on the off chance, or you can make it, then you can check out those details. I think there's links on our page, or if you've got any questions, please pop it in the comments and I'll pick them up if you do want to get a ticket. But great value, I think, for the day. You get lessons and also gameplay. So that's obviously, like you said, one of the main things. Sorry, Mark.
Yes, should or just message us on Facebook, but however you want to get to us. We've got guys going in from traveling in from Las Vegas. One of our guys, long-standing mentorship from the very beginning, Jared, who's coming in from Alaska for it. So that you don't just need to be from Utah. From the feedback that we got on the UK version, everybody got a hell of a lot out of it. It's not just turn up and play some games. It's coaches watching your games. It's structured, round by round feedback. It's scenarios that we're going through, loads of questions, loads of different scenarios, how to deploy against this, how to do this, what would you do in this situation, taking the guys to one side and saying, okay, what's your plan, and then taking the other opponent out from a coach's perspective, saying, what's your plan, okay, what do you think your opponent's thinking, trying to make everybody think. You'll get 3 games in a day, but you'll go away with a ton of information. So if you're in the States and you got a free weekend, then I would recommend get in touch and give it a go.
Yeah, there are limited spaces, but just let us know, and we'll hopefully fit you in.
So you got your 2 events there. So you putting on the one of the Vanguard Tactics masterclasses in the States, which people asked us for quite a lot actually, and then the weekend after is SoCal. So there's a good 10 days away, possibly. There's a lot of expense involved. So I think that, could you have prepared any more? Not really, because of the duration that you've had the codex. So that you've been to 2 major tournaments with it. You're testing it against, its worst enemy. and different pilots of that worst enemy, because, like you say, Joe's got a different list and a different way of playing it. Ben's got a different way of playing that. You've come up against my White Scars, my Custodes, Jack's Tau. It's a well-rounded, well-balanced evaluation of your list against those different enemies.
Yeah.
So, get out there and enjoy yourself. See how you get on. We're all hoping that you take away the 5-0 and the number 1.
Yeah, I think my goal is 4 wins and a loss. I'd love to go 4-1 because it's one of the biggest events in the world. I think it's bigger than the LGT, so 4 wins and a loss would be great. So that's what I'm going to go for. If I can get the 5-0, that would be even better. But I feel very well prepared, although I'm telling all my potential opponents what my list is now. List of missions not for another week, but I doubt anyone's going to tailor to beat me, so I won't worry about that too much. But really excited to go over there. One also thing, a little bit of sad news before we wrap this up. Jared, who is on our mentorship program, 2 days ago had his army stolen out of his car. He packed up his in the awful thing as well is that he wrote a really beautiful article for us for VT. It's going to be going up on our blog page about his time going through the mentorship program and basically how he's developed from losing every single game to now going 3-2 at events. He took a picture of the Dark Eldar army that he used. He put it in his car on his tray, and someone broke into his car and stole his tray with all his models on. So if you have seen if you do get time, guys, please check out our Facebook page. I'm going to put a post about it. I'm going to post a link about our blog. I know Scari's already made a post about it, but guys, we really need to get this army back for Jared. Think if somebody stole your army, it's about $300 $300 worth of models plus hours and hours of painting. Jared loves this army, and it's so sad to see that someone would do this in our community. So if there's any way that we can help Jared, then I hope all you guys that watch this channel support, and we can hopefully get that back for him. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a despicable act, whoever's done that, and I'm sure it'll turn up for sale, or somebody somewhere will maybe have the guts to give it back. So if we can help him in any way, that would be great. So, like I say, if you see that post and you can share it, I'm sure that there's network in the States where people might come across something like that, and we can get it back to them.
Yeah, and if you're watching this and it was you that did take it, then the best thing to do is put your hand up, admit that you were wrong, and be the bigger man. And just give it back to a guy that's obviously missing his army sorely. And yeah, hopefully we can get this sorted. Anyway, guys, I hope you thought enjoyed this show. If you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to make sure you stay in the loop with all the other posts and videos and podcasts that we do. And ultimately, guys, I hope you have a really great week playing the 40k. If you get any more questions, then obviously we're going to be doing this on the regular. So if you guys do have questions for the live show or the podcast, then you can get in touch on our Facebook page and ask them there prior, so you can make sure your questions get answered. Anyway, guys, take care. And Mark, thank you very much for coming on the show again.
Welcome, mate. Good to see you. And
I
all the best.
Might not see you for a couple of weeks.
Indeed. Let's hope you got a big trophy to bring back from California.
It can sit up there with all mothers.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Between the bodybuilding trophies and the Warhammer trophies. Anyway, guys, take care and see you all soon.